Well, how y'all doing today? I hope y'all having a blessed day, and I've been trying to wrap my head around how I'm going to make this video. Um, well, I guess I'll start out this way. I'm asking for prayer from my son, my oldest boy. He's 37 years old, and he's been working like a dog, 10, 13 hours a day for months now. One day off during the week, with the occasional 2 days off together. And they can't keep anybody because they won't pay him nothing. He's staying there for the experience. I worked in management a good part of my life, and he wanted to learn more about management. He had owned his own business, worked out of his home, and made good money. And then when they started putting the sanctions at the borders and stuff, and he couldn't ship, out of country, he lost a lot of his business. And of course, you try to keep your business afloat, and any money you got saved, you're using that. So his business went under, and he went through a great deal of depression over that. And then the Wuhan hit, which made it very hard. But he wanted to get some more management experience. It's a pretty big company he works for. It's like a gas station, a small gas station, convenience store thing. And of course, they probably got more pumps than anything else. It's actually owned by, pardon me, an oil company. And so he's been working like a dog. Now, this is the same son who I made a video on this. He had a friend, he had him for a couple, 3 years, and they would see each other off and on, and he hadn't seen him for a while, and he gave him a call. And it turned out that he was in a bad way, in the middle of COVID, and whatever caused it, and was on the outs, and, my son wasn't going to have it. And my son told him, you come here and stay with me until you get yourself back on your feet. And he did. He got himself a really good job. And they were roommates, but they had been friends for years. And he was a couple years older than my son. My oldest boy, is 37. And I mentioned this in the other video. Usually he rode in with a co-worker. He worked in a warehouse and cross dock, no doubt. And he rode in with a fellow worker, and he needed a ride home. So my son had called him and said, because he needed a ride home, and my son said, well, I'll be out of work in a couple hours. You'll have to wait. And he said, no problem. But when my son went to pick him up, he said he noticed that something wasn't right about him. He seemed to be not as talkative, kind of staring off in the distance. And he said, well, at first I just thought he was in deep thought, And then he said his friend turned and looked at him and said, where are we going? And he said, what do you mean, where are we going? You know where we're going back to the house. He said he knew then something was wrong. And the man went into a full-blown seizure, fell into the dash, went into cardiac arrest. My son hauled him out of the car on the side of the road and started doing chest compressions on him until he couldn't do it no more, and then just started backhanding him. And of course, he called an ambulance, and paramedics had to drag him off of him. Told him he had done all he could do to leave it up to them, and they got him in the hospital, and he went into a coma, which he was never going to come out of. And his mother had to pull the plug on him. And my son is still trying to get over that. He is living with guilt. Could he have done more? Well, I asked my son, does he have a history of drug use? And my son went off on me. He said, you don't think I'd have him in my house if he did, do you? Because my son don't do drugs. He don't smoke either. He dips some snuff. He don't drink either. I mean, during the course of a whole year, he might have 3, 4 beers. And I kid you not, over the course of a whole year, I mean, if he's invited out to a barbecue or something like that. But it turns out that somehow or other, when he was waiting for my son to pick him up, he came in contact with, I don't know if he picked up something, had it on it, or leant up against something, or a restroom is a big place. They say if you go into a restroom and you see a white powder on anything, don't touch it. But he came in contact with fentanyl, and it only takes about 0.2 milligrams, I guess, to kill you. You know, so he died, and my son still struggles with that. But he went into work last night. He's been being worked like a dog. And you can imagine how small that place is. And my son is not the type to complain. He's a big boy. He's a worker. When I say a big boy, I mean he's been, like, I had to buy him husky clothes in first grade. He's big boned. He is a big dude. And he is not the type to complain if he ain't feeling well. Not a whiner. And he finally told his supervisor last night, or early in the morning, because he works third shift, if I don't sit down, I'm going to fall down. That's how bad I feel. So he told him to go sit in the back office. I guess, it's a multi-purpose kind of office. It can't be that big. But they have the CO2 tanks back there that run the soda fountains. And apparently one of them had a major leak. So while my son is sitting there waiting to see if he's going to feel better, he is progressively getting worse. And I mean worse to the point where he lost the use of his arms and legs. And his blood pressure plummeted. And his supervisor called an ambulance, and they took him out of there in an ambulance. And he was exhibiting all the signs of a stroke. They tried for 4 hours to draw blood from him to run tests. Every hour they tried to draw blood and couldn't. That's how low his blood pressure was. So they have given him 2 days of strict bed rest, and they got him set up with a cardiologist because all the signs were like having a stroke. But one has to wonder about sitting in CO2 doing paperwork and coming in and out of a room where CO2 is leaking, pardon me, and breathing that in all the time because only management and supervisors are back there that much, if that didn't have something to do with it. But we're going to find out. He's got an appointment for a cardiologist, and we're hoping for the best with that. And on top of that, I called him last night, He was just getting home. Oh, I'd call it last night, but it was early this morning. And I started, well, are you all right? Asking him this and that and the other thing, and he was not in the state of mind to answer a bunch of questions. And then he tells me, I just walked an hour and a half to get home from the hospital. I said, what? Yeah, I just walked an hour and a half from the hospital to get home. I didn't have the cash to get a cab. Where he lives, getting a cab, hey, how you doing, is nearly impossible anyway. I mean, I lived in that town. They had 2 cab drivers in that town, okay? And they pretty much run the company. Well, it made sense because they took him out of there in an ambulance, so his vehicle is still at work. But he's been under a lot of stress with everything he's been through. So I'm chomping at the bit to call him, but I know that he's probably sleeping right now. I slept maybe 4 hours myself last night, and I woke up. Every single one of them hours I was up. Got up on the hour, or roughly close to it, and so I'm pretty beat myself. And I'm really chomping at the bit to call him. But I know he's probably sleeping right now. He's normally sleeping right now, so I will be waiting to call him and see how he's doing. He has been offered other jobs, better jobs, but he's not the type to quit a job. And he keeps saying he wants to stay there. He's not been there quite a year. To get at least a year under his belt, he's got a degree in electronics, and he's been offered a job having something to do with that, making $26 an hour. But he wants to stay there for a year, get at least a year, because, back in the day, it looked bad if you went from job to job, It made for one ugly application, one ugly resume, but today everybody's doing it. Until they started raising up, the pay for people. People didn't want to work because the cost of living went up. And all these places didn't want to go up with the cost of living. And they weren't going to do it. So, there is some heart disease in my family, mainly because my parents were Southern, and they come out of a family with 10 kids, both of them, my mother and my dad. And, they ate more lard than anybody should ever eat in a lifetime. So when, my kids were little, and I said this before, I'll say it again. I worked what was considered full-time, kept my house clean, and made my kids home-cooked meals, right? Was it easy? No. My 2 days off, I was doing laundry and shopping, cleaning, cooking. And I did not feed my kids a bunch of junk food because I knew that there was a history of heart problems, cholesterol, diabetes, problems with salt. Of course, back in the day when you canned everything, even still today, if you can something, you put salt in it. Blood pressure. I knew all that running my family, and I wasn't going to have it with my kids. I was raised on Kool-Aid, all right? My kids, Kool-Aid was a treat. They got juice. Highly carbonated sugar beverages like soda was a rarity in my home. They got juice. I bought juice. I didn't go to work to get my nails done. I went to work to give my family a better life, a healthier life. I didn't hand them a bag of chips and say, here, go sit down on the couch, kid, you bother me. Chips were something that they hardly ever got. It came with a homemade hamburger, and they got 5 large ones. That was it. They didn't know any better because they didn't spend time at homes where people did that with their kids. And don't tell me people don't do that with their kids. Because they will give their kids a king-size bag of cheese doodles and say, go sit down, kid. And that ends up being that kid's supper for the night. And I wasn't having it. I worked in the health field. And part of my training, if I didn't say this already, again, was I was trained in being a dietitian. So that if I had somebody that had high blood pressure or was a diabetic or had heart problems, with cholesterol, I knew how to cook. When I went in there and I looked at the routine, I knew what to do. And I was determined it wasn't going to happen with my kids. So, but kids these days, like I said, especially with the Wuhan, people stopped going out and started staying home and started ordering in. If we got something out, I actually got on my parents because my parents would have them on the weekends when they were little, and they'd head right from McDonald's. I swear I had every Happy Meal there was from 1985. Throughout the years, I wish I still had them, but I put a stop to it. They just wanted to spoil their grandkids, and I said, hey, they can't be eating that all the time like that. Now, occasionally on a Friday night, we'd get a pizza and watch a movie. And on Sundays, when we went to church, we'd go to a Ponderosa where they had a wonderful buffet. I've never had trouble with my kids eating vegetables. My youngest son, I swear he had only about maybe 6 teeth in his mouth. And I'd go and get fresh broccoli, and I'd turn it upside down, put a little bit of salad dressing in the bottom of it, and he would pick them up and he'd be eating them. People would walk by in amazement. Is he really eating raw broccoli? I said, yes, he is. I just put a little bit of French dressing in the bottom of it for him. I wish I could get my kids to eat like that. I'm thinking, why can't you? So, but the way that he's working and everything, and got a burger doodle across the street, it's more convenient for him to be eating out. So I would imagine he's been eating out a lot. And I'm not going to get on to him about it now, but at some point I'm going to be talking to him about how he needs to make better choices in what he's eating. But I'm hoping that it really wasn't heart-related. That it had something more to do with a big old CO2 tank leaking and him sitting in that office doing paperwork and come on now. That stuff will kill you. I'm fixing to eat me something here, but I'm going to make myself a homemade hamburger. Now, I broke it gently to a sister I had once. I said, there's a big old chain restaurant that says their beef patties are 100% beef. So let me tell you what that means. That means that what beef is in that patty is 100%. But that patty as a whole is not 100%. It has fillers in it. It has salt in it. It has water in it. When you buy a pound of hamburger at the store, look at the ingredients. It's got salt. It's got water in there. right? They fatten it up. That's why it cooks down to nothing. But I'm going to have to eat me something here. Now, I'm the kind of person that, I know a lot of people, when they're stressed out about something, they will binge eat on junk food. I am the total opposite. Complete and total opposite. If I'm stressed out, something's weighing heavy on my mind, I cannot eat. I lose my appetite altogether. But I know that that's not good for me, not to eat anything. So even if it's, a half of a hamburger, like I said, I'm about to make a hamburger, which is a whole lot better than getting one out somewhere. Pan frying chicken is a whole lot better than getting deep fried out somewhere. I know I'm going to feel better. I have got to eat. I do not want to eat. Last thing on my mind, but that's what I'm going to do because I know I need to. And that might help me sleep, but I don't think sleep is going to come to me until I talk to my son. He didn't want to worry me, all right, because with the RA, I finally got my RA medicine, and it's supposed to stop me from having RA flare-ups. And every time I have an RA flare-up, it does damage, and it's permanent. And I finally got my medication, and it's supposed to stop that. But stress was set him off. And he wasn't going to call me. I wish he had called me. I would have tried to have gotten a cab for him. I know what it's like to get a cab there. Really, neither one of us really, in all honesty, probably could have got one. But he didn't. He didn't even want to call me. He posted it on Facebook. Yeah, that's right. Here I am scrolling. There's my son. He's been in the hospital. Break it to me gently. First thing I did was type in the comments, "Are you home?" Yeah, I got on that phone. But I didn't talk to him long. But I'm chomping at the bit. Chomping at the bit to call him. And I probably will be here in a little while. So I'm asking for prayers for my son because he has been through what anybody would call a rash of shit in the last few months. And he needs some prayers. He does. So I'm asking y'all to keep him in your prayers. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, for stopping in and just seeing how I'm doing. I hope you all have a blessed weekend and that you spend it with somebody that you love and the people that you love. Thank you all for stopping in. Bye-bye.